At 3 a.m. She called the cops screaming that I was a trespasser on my own land. What she didn't know, I didn't just own the cabin, I owned the entire county road she was standing on. You know that feeling when you're finally off the grid? No phones ringing, no texts buzzing, just trees, silence, and the sound of a lake brushing the shore like a lullaby. That's what I came here for. This lake cabin had been in my family for 3 generations, passed down from my grandfather who built it with his bare hands back in 1964. It was old, sturdy, and soaked in memories. My dad taught me how to fish on that dock. My mom used to hum while making coffee on the squeaky stove. And now, after everything life had thrown at me, deployment, divorce, burnout, this cabin was my escape hatch. But some people just don't know how to let others be. Enter Karen. She moved into the area just 6 months ago, bought a big modern house in the gated HOA across the hill, and apparently appointed herself the eyes and ears of Pine Hollow Lakeside Estates. She wasn't elected. No one really liked her. But somehow, she was everywhere, clipping tree branches that weren't hers, measuring fence heights, and recording videos of people's yards like she was working for code enforcement. I wasn't even in their HOA. My land was separate plot, a 40-acre stretch that wrapped around the southern side of the lake, with private road access and no contractual ties to their community. But that didn't stop Karen. The trouble started when I pulled up in my old Silverado just before dusk. The sun was melting into the water like gold, and I could already feel the stress slipping off my shoulders. I had just started unloading groceries and firewood when I heard the golf cart up the trail. I didn't even look up. I figured it was a neighbor waving hello. Nope. Excuse me. A sharp voice called out from behind me. Are you aware this is private community property? I turned and saw her, khakis, oversized sunglasses, clipboard on her lap, like she was reporting a crime scene. I blinked, unsure if I heard her right. Sorry, this area belongs to the Pine Hollow HOA. Only members and their guests are allowed here overnight. Who are you visiting? I laughed, thinking she was kidding. I'm not visiting anyone. This is my place. She tilted her head. That's not possible. I've reviewed the land records myself. This area is part of our wildlife preservation buffer. I walked to the porch, unlocked the front door, and opened it wide. I've got the deed inside if you want to read it over coffee. She didn't budge. Instead, she pointed toward the private road I came in on. That road is HOA maintained. If you're trespassing on our access road, we can tow your truck. I nearly dropped a cooler in my hands. That road, my grandfather had built it, and we'd paid taxes on it for over 50 years. I knew exactly where the property lines ended, and they didn't come close to her manicured turf. I didn't want conflict. I didn't come here for a fight, so I kept it calm. Ma'am, with all due respect, I've been coming to this cabin since I was 5. My family owns this land outright. Your HOA rules don't apply here. She narrowed her eyes. We'll see about that. And she zipped off. I assumed that would be the end of it. Maybe she'd go home, Google my last name, and realize I wasn't bluffing. Or maybe she'd tell some HOA friends a weird story about the guy with the cabin. Either way, I went back inside, cracked a soda, lit the fireplace, and settled into the old rocking chair with a book. But with people like Karen, it's never that simple. Because people like her aren't just obsessed with rules, they're addicted to control. And when they think they've lost it, they don't rest. Not even at 3 o'clock in the morning. I've experienced some wild wake-up calls in my life. Military alarms, midnight storms, even the occasional raccoon break-in. But nothing quite prepared me for the chaos that unfolded at 3:12 a.m. that night. The moon was full. The lake was silent. I'd finally dozed off in the cabin's old recliner, wrapped in a blanket my mom crocheted before she passed. That chair creaks like it's whispering old stories, and that night, I felt like I was finally starting to heal. No work, no noise, just me and the hum of nature. Then came the lights. Bright, flashing, red and blue. At first, I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard it, loud knocking on the door, a voice shouting from outside. "Sir, come to the door immediately. Sheriff's Department." My heart jumped. For a split second, I thought something had happened to a family member, maybe an emergency call. I rushed to the door barefoot, yanked it open, and came face to face with two deputies, AK-9 unit barking like crazy, and behind them, Karen, standing on the trail in her robe and slippers like it was her personal crime scene. She was holding a flashlight and shouting over the barking dog. "That's him. That's the guy. He broke in hours ago. He's a trespasser." I blinked. "Wait, what?" The taller deputy motioned for me to step out of the cabin. "Sir, we received a call reporting an unlawful entry into this structure. We need to verify your identity and see your right to be here." Now, I've been trained not to escalate, so I kept calm. No sudden moves, no raised voice, but inside I was boiling. "Officers, this is my cabin. I own this property. I've owned it for years. I've got proof inside: my ID, the deed, the tax papers, whatever you need." They nodded, professional, but cautious. I understood. They were just doing their job, responding to what they thought might be a serious situation. Karen, though, she was enjoying every second. She stood back smugly, arms crossed, whispering to one of the officers. He told me earlier that he was just visiting and couldn't provide any documents. "I'm on the HOA board. He's not registered." One of the deputies glanced at her, then looked at me. "Do you have any documentation on you?" "Absolutely." I walked inside slowly, grabbed a folder from the old filing cabinet. Inside it was everything they needed: my driver's license, a certified copy of the property deed, and a county plat map. I handed it over. The deputy held the flashlight on the papers and studied them carefully. "This says you own not just the cabin but the surrounding 40 acres. I nodded, "Including the road you drove in on." That caught their attention. He looked up from the map, then back at Karen. "Ma'am, according to this gentleman's land includes the access trail and this entire area." Karen stammered. That can't be. The HOA records, ma'am. HOA covenants don't override county records or private land deeds. This property is outside HOA jurisdiction." That was the first time I saw her face drop. Her voice shrank. "But he said he wasn't part of the community." I stepped forward calmly. "Because I'm not. I never was. My family never joined. We never paid dues, never signed on to the HOA. This is private land. Always has been." The second officer glanced back toward Karen. "Did you know this when you called it in?" I thought. "He was on our road." "You mean his road?" the deputy corrected. They turned to me. "Sir, sorry to disturb you. Everything checks out. We'll file this as a false report." Karen's jaw dropped. "Wait, what do you mean false report?" I called in good faith. The officer didn't argue. He just pulled out a small notepad and wrote down her name. "We'll need a statement from you too, ma'am. Standard procedure for misuse of emergency services." Karen's voice cracked. "You're punishing me for trying to protect my neighborhood?" The officer shrugged. "Or harassing a property owner at 3 in the morning." She tried to protest again, but I could already tell. The power had shifted. She wasn't the queen of the cul-de-sac anymore. I watched as the deputies escorted her back to her golf cart, now visibly shaking. She tried to save face by saying, "Well, this isn't over," before zooming off. She was right about that part. It wasn't over. Not even close. The next morning, I woke up groggy but calm. The fire had died down. Birds were chirping, and the lake reflected a golden sunrise like nothing had ever happened. But something had happened. Karen's 3 a.m. stunt didn't just shake me awake. It lit a fire I hadn't felt in years. See, I'm a peaceful man by nature. A veteran, sure, but I don't go looking for fights. I came to the cabin for rest, not revenge. But when someone weaponizes the law, abuses 911, and tries to frame you as a trespasser on your own land, that's not just annoying. That's dangerous. So I did what any disciplined ex-soldier would do. I made coffee. Then I pulled out my laptop. I started by calling the county records office, just to double-check everything. I had the latest plat maps, yes, but I wanted official confirmation that Karen had no legal jurisdiction over my land. The clerk, Mrs. Parker, was polite and thorough. "Oh yes," she said, "your parcel's free and clear. No HOA annexation, no easements, no shared access. In fact, Your property line goes into the lake about 20 feet. Boom. Then I called a friend of mine, Marcus, who's a lawyer and happens to specialize in property disputes. I gave him the rundown. He actually laughed halfway through. She called the cops on you? At 3 a.m.? On your own land? Yep. You want to sue her? Or just make sure she never does it again? That was the big question. Because in truth, I didn't want to escalate unless I had to. But Marcus explained something I didn't know. Filing a knowingly false police report isn't just wrong. It's illegal, especially when it involves private property and a potential misuse of public emergency resources. Then he said the words that made my eyebrows rise. If you're feeling generous, you could send her a cease and desist. If you're not, we can file for intentional harassment, emotional distress, and even request a temporary restraining order. Given your service history and disability status, this could go very badly for her in court. Now, I wasn't about to drag a neighbor through hell just to feel superior, but I needed protection, and Karen needed a lesson, one that didn't involve screaming or golf carts or midnight police visits. Just facts, law, and calm confidence. So Marcus helped me draft a formal notice of property boundaries and rights, citing my deed, county approval, and exemption from all HOA regulations. We included a stern paragraph at the bottom. Any further harassment, false reports, or attempts to enforce HOA regulations on this property will be met with immediate legal action under local and federal statutes, including but not limited to emergency service abuse, ADA violation, and malicious defamation. The last one was important. Why? Because the whole time Karen was trying to kick me out, she kept referring to my kind not belonging here, which, given my service-connected disability, could land her in serious trouble under the Americans with Disabilities Act if she tried to push me off land used for therapeutic retreat or rehabilitation. Karen didn't just mess with a veteran. She messed with the wrong law. Marcus couriered the documents to her address that afternoon. He said it's always better when legal notices arrive with a little formal wait. Karen's husband signed for it at the door. I waited. A full day passed. Then 2. No visits. No calls. No patrols. Just silence. Until day 3, when I got a knock at the cabin door. I opened it expecting the sheriff. It was Karen. She wasn't in her usual power stance. No clipboard. No shades. Just a nervous smile and an envelope in her hand. I wanted to apologize. She looked down, clearly struggling. I didn't realize your property was separate. I thought you were just trying to get around the rules. I nodded. Well, now you know. I hope we can just put this behind us. I took the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note and a gift card to the local diner. Petty? A little. But it meant she got the message. I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in being left alone. Still, deep down, I knew something about people like her. When control is taken from them, they don't disappear quietly. This wasn't over. Not yet. A week passed with surprising calm. No more late-night lights. No notes on my cabin door. No patrols from Karen's golf cart squad. I'd started to think maybe, just maybe, the drama was over. But that's not how power-hungry people operate. See, Karen didn't just want me gone because of some HOA rule. She wanted control. She wanted to be the gatekeeper of the lake. And once she realized she couldn't bully me with stickers, bylaws, or 911 calls, she decided to escalate in her own twisted way. It started subtly. First, the private road leading to my cabin, which I own, suddenly had an orange traffic cone placed in the middle of it. Then 2. Then a poorly printed no access HOA property sign zip-tied to a stake. Funny thing is, the county records show that exact stretch of gravel belongs to me. Not a foot of it falls under HOA jurisdiction. So I did what any landowner would do. I took down the sign, moved the cones, and placed my own sign. Private property. Access restricted to owner and guests. Trespassers will be recorded. And I meant it. 2 motion-activated cameras went up, one on the driveway, one near the dock. Not for revenge, just to document what I suspected was coming. And it didn't take long. 2 nights later, I caught footage of Karen and a man I recognized from the HOA board trying to sneak in with flashlights. They were dragging a folding barricade down the trail. On the footage, you can hear her whisper, "We'll block off the dock too. If he can't access the water, maybe he'll just leave." But the kicker? They weren't even quiet about it. One of them tripped on a root, let out a loud curse, and my motion sensor lights lit up the entire clearing. They panicked, ran, left the barricade behind like amateurs. And that was it. The moment I knew it was time to go public, I emailed the security footage to Marcus. He immediately filed a formal complaint with the county sheriff and submitted a request for a restraining order. Then I did something unexpected. I attended the next HOA meeting. Now remember, I wasn't a member. Never had been. But the HOA board had announced it was publicly addressing the issue of unauthorized residence on lakeside property. You can bet they didn't expect me to show up. But I did. With a printed copy of my deed, the county map, and screenshots of the barricade incident. The room was packed. Karen sat near the front, flanked by her clique of rule-obsessed retirees. The moment she saw me walk in, her eyes went wide. I waited patiently through the agenda. Overgrown lawns, trash bins, a complaint about someone's wind chimes, until they got to new business. That's when I raised my hand. I'd like to speak. Karen started to object. He's not a member. But the HOA president, a quiet man named Bill, overruled her. He's a property owner. Let him speak. So I stood up. I told him everything. Calmly, factually, legally. I laid out the 3 a.m. police call, the sticker incident, the fake signs, and the attempted dock barricade, all backed by legal documents and video proof. The room went dead silent, and then a slow ripple of embarrassment passed through Karen's supporters. Some looked away. Others muttered under their breath. Bill cleared his throat and said, "If this is true, and it seems to be, we may be looking at multiple violations of personal property rights, and possibly criminal harassment." Karen tried to interrupt. I was just trying to protect the community. From the man who owns more land than any of us. Bill shot back. The meeting adjourned shortly after, but the damage was done. I didn't just protect my property. I broke her grip on the neighborhood. And the ripple effects? Oh, they were just beginning. You know what's funny? The people who try hardest to control others are often the ones who have no idea who they're messing with. Karen thought I was some squatter in a rustic cabin, too poor, too weak, or too clueless to stand up for myself. She had no idea I didn't just own the cabin. I owned the entire stretch of land surrounding it, and I wasn't done reminding her. See, after the HOA meeting meltdown, word traveled fast. My footage, my documents, my calm dismantling of Karen's false authority. It all spread like wildfire through the community. I wasn't loud about it. I didn't post online rants or plaster signs on trees. I just quietly let the truth do the work. But the best part? That truth ran deeper than Karen ever imagined. Because here's what I never told her. A few years ago, before moving to the cabin, I made a decision. I used my veterans' benefits, some inheritance, and smart investment moves to buy up old, undeveloped land lots around the lake. Slowly, quietly, over time. Some parcels were small, just forested nooks. Others were abandoned or tax forfeited. A few were listed in obscure county auctions. But by the time I was done, I owned nearly 82% of the land around the lake. That included the private access roads, the old maintenance trails, and even the original utility easement the HOA used to enter the area. I never flaunted it. I wasn't interested in playing king. But Karen, she forced my hand. So one afternoon, I took a walk. A slow, deliberate walk. Past Karen's street, clipboard in hand. Measured a few boundary markers. Talked to a local surveyor. Then dropped off a folder at the county office. 2 weeks later, the notices went out. Green Square, the HOA had been using land they didn't own, mined for years, without permission. Green Square, the access road they maintained, I now had the right to gate it off. Green Square, the community dock they were so proud of, built partially on my shoreline. The county offered them a choice: negotiate with me, or prepare to move everything off my property. I never charged them a dime. All I asked was simple: leave me alone. Stop harassing outsiders. and update your bylaws to reflect the real ownership around here. Karen didn't take it well. At the next HOA meeting, she stood up to speak, then promptly got voted off the board. The same people who once praised her now saw her as the liability she really was. She left the meeting in tears. I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. But I'll admit, there was a deep, quiet satisfaction in knowing that truth, patience, and paper trails had done what yelling never could. Today, my lake cabin is quieter than ever. The sun still rises over the water. Deer still wander past my windows. And no more Karen. The HOA updated its maps, installed new signs, even sent me a formal apology, signed by the new president, who kindly asked if I'd ever considered joining the board myself. I said no, because I didn't come out here to rule anything. I came here for peace. And I earned it, not with fists, but with facts. If you enjoyed watching Karen crash and burn on someone else's land, go ahead and tap that like button. It tells YouTube this story was worth it. And if you love stories where the underdog always wins in the end, hit subscribe and join the squad. More wild real-life dramas coming soon.